All right, hey everyone, what's going on? Needs more drums back in Grand Keys, our 100% vanilla series in City Skylines 2. And there's no fancy intro today because today we're just going to jump right in. We're going to get some work done. This is part 2 of sort of master planning our second city of the region. You know, a very scaled down version of a city nonetheless, but I think we're going to be able to kind of get all of the features of a big city, you know, even in this small footprint. We're going to get a little creative with the space. And you can see in the last episode, we made the whole road layout, which is not something that I typically do. I don't usually lay out my cities before, you know, like all at once and then fill in the zones. This is something a little different, but we're going to try something different here. You know, I figured it might be kind of fun to do something like this and just see if we can get this all filled in one episode. So just real quick before we actually start getting stuff down, I just want to talk about kind of the game plan. So I think we're going to start with city services. So we're going to start with like buildings like schools, fire stations, police stations, you know, big amenities like that. The train station right here is going to go down pretty early on. And then we'll turn our attention to zoning. So I think for zoning, we're going to do a mixture of medium vanilla zones and some of the high density southwest packs, because I've been playing around with those in one of my off-camera cities. And the buildings don't get that big, to be honest, which is kind of nice, as opposed to the northeast pack, which is, you know, some of these, and they get pretty tall. So I want to stay away from that. I want to stick to some, you know, lower heights for this city over here. I think it'll make, you know, a little bit more sense given that it's not like a massive sprawling city. So that's going to be kind of the downtown. We'll throw some offices in there too, like some small offices and things, commercial buildings, you know, of course, and stuff like that. But then we'll fill in kind of like this with some medium density residential as well. Not too sure exactly what style yet. I'll kind of think about that as I go. And then over here, I'm thinking of something like a low rent housing project. You know, we're kind of by the industry, so this would provide some good housing for our workforce. And, you know, we'll kind of bridge the gap with some trees and stuff and create like a nice barrier so these people aren't right on top of this industry over here. And then moving on to like these parts, this is just going to be straight suburbs, you know, just nothing crazy. We're just going to zone some low density houses here, single family homes all the way around here, and then throw in some commercial maybe at some of these intersections. And then over here is where things might get kind of interesting. I don't know if we're going to get, this might be another build in and of itself, kind of like everything over here. But what I'm thinking of doing is adding in like a forestry industry over here. So I think we can kind of use some of these trees and sort of redesign these to make something look a little bit more manicured, a little bit more planned out as like a sustainable forestry industry. So we're gonna do that. That might be another build in and of itself, like I said. But then at the very least, we'll probably throw some farms down over here to kind of bridge the gap between the residential and what's going to be like a pretty busy forestry industry. You know, we have some rail access here, as you could see. And I don't think I'm going to put a cargo train station over here. I think that's going to be over here somewhere. So that's another thing that I might do, but that might be just all one project, kind of cleaning up the industry and making something, you know, a little bit more connected. But at the very least today, we're going to get everything pretty much zoned in, and I want to have somewhat of a complete looking city by the end of this episode. So we're going to jump into it. And then one more thing, I guess, just before we do that, city names, start thinking about them now, leave them in the comments. I'll probably put up a poll as well, so be sure to check that out. Check for a post, you know, around when this episode releases, because I'm curious about what you guys think would be a good city name for this. I know we had some suggestions in the past that I didn't end up using, so maybe I'll recycle some of those and kind of bring some of those back since those weren't used over in this area. But anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and just get building. All right, guys, and so for these first couple of time lapses, I'm actually going to switch things up a little bit and add a little bit of commentary about what I'm doing, because I actually want to explain, you know, what I'm doing, and we're doing a lot. This is a pretty packed episode, and you know, I think it would be useful to kind of explain why I'm doing what I'm doing. So in this case, we are starting by building a train station, and this is again a pretty small city, and so, you know, I wasn't going for something too big, and actually this French train station works quite well. And you can see here, I was struggling to get it to align right with that central avenue. So just disabling some of the locking tools helped me get this in the right position to kind of center it perfectly with that avenue. And I'm just dragging out the train tracks for future use. We're actually not going to connect up any transit in this episode. We'll save that for, I don't know, maybe the next one, maybe one kind of after that. We'll come back and you know, bring some transit to this area. But I really like the spot that this is in. I think it looks pretty good, and it's just about the perfect size for our city. And so for any train station that I build, as you've seen in prior episodes, I always like to add some point of access, kind of like a one-way sort of loop to bring people, you know, people can pull up right in front of the station, get dropped off, and then swing right back onto like a main road. So people aren't actually stopping and dropping people off, you know, right on a main avenue. So I always like to have like a little offshoot. You can see that's what I'm building here. There's a little, I added in a bus lane. I figure we will have some sort of bus stop here, you know, 100% for sure. And then somewhere else in the city, kind of close by, we'll add like a bus terminal or something. So that's all to come. I'm not too sure on where I'm going to put those yet, but we're going to need that eventually. So now we're moving on to some education facilities. And so I wanted to get some of these city service buildings down first before we actually started zoning. So that way I'm not deleting people's homes or anything to, you know, add these buildings in after the fact. I like to put these down early, especially when we're doing like kind of a more planned out build like this. It helps to just kind of zone around your city services. And in this case, we're adding a high school, and this is the modern high school from the modern architecture pack. It's a little bit of an interesting building because the way that these sub buildings work. So it's like, you know, typically, at least where I'm from in the States, any buildings, like everything in a high school is connected to each other. So you usually don't have these disconnected different buildings. However, I know that in some parts of the country, specifically more in like California or something where it's a little bit warmer, you know, the buildings will often be disconnected and they'll have like separate wings for things and stuff. So I'm not too worried about putting that down. I think it's kind of cool. It's a cool building, and it has a great capacity for an affordable price. So that's really why we're doing it. We're trying to increase our capacity, and that's the same reason why I'm putting down this urban elementary school right here, because this building has so much capacity. And as you may have just seen, our education system needs capacity, especially for the elementary side of things. It's terrible. We need to add more schools. We're being very bad about that. But yeah, moving on here to our first zones. I'm doing a mixture of like mixed use, high density Southwest, and medium density vanilla. And the reason is the Southwest high density buildings, like I said earlier, they are not very large. They don't get very tall. So it fits in really well with kind of like a modern downtown building, you know, if you want to add in a couple of modern buildings. And that's why I'm kind of combining it with the vanilla buildings, because the vanilla buildings look a little bit older. They look a little bit, there's a lot more brick, whereas the Southwest high density has a little bit more of like those modern kind of prefab, there's a lot of glass, like a lot of windows, you know, it's kind of a different style. And I think it looks cool kind of alongside some of the vanilla buildings. I'm not really using the Northeast high density here because those are really, really big. And same with the medium density. They're a little bit, I don't know, I could probably add in a couple here and there, but we'll see if I go back and decide to do that. We'll see how this turns out. But yeah, I wanted to add in a couple of offices as well. The offices get really tall, so I try to keep the zones relatively, give them a relatively small footprint. This will help reduce the heights of my buildings. As you can see here, neither of these buildings are super huge, you know, really tall. And so I don't want, you know, some massive like 50-story skyscraper in the middle of this smaller scaled down city. So anyway, filling in some of these gaps again with some medium density and mixed use. I think the mixed use buildings work really well in this type of area. We're right alongside a main road, right by a train station. So you figure there's going to be a lot of foot traffic. And since it's not a super like crazy bustling type of downtown, I'm not too worried about having residential or, you know, mixed use even close to these main roads, since it's not going to be, you know, insanely busy. But at the same time, that is something we got to be conscious of. If we start getting issues with like noise pollution or something, then we might have to go back and rethink this. But at first glance, I don't think that'll be a big issue. You know, I look at like, again, I take a lot of influence from Chicago because that's where I'm living right now, and I'm very familiar with that city. And I mean, there's residential along Michigan Avenue, which is, you know, one of the busiest streets in the whole city. And same with Lakeshore Drive. Even Lakeshore Drive you know, has a lot of residential right next to it, and it's actually very coveted properties. A lot of people like to live there. All right, so now I'm looking at some signature buildings as well, because I remember that we have a lot of these and I don't use these a lot. And so I tried to find some, you know, that might fit in this downtown area. And this little hotel, this is from the Northeastern architecture pack, looks really cool and works really well. Now here, just moving on to some of these suburbs, just zoning some of these waterfront houses. Very, I like the way these look. They're nice, smaller single-family homes. I thought about using a different type of zone, but I think we'll stick with these for now to kind of be in line with the other part of the city. And finally, just adding in a couple of commercial buildings for now, and then we'll kind of wrap up this time lapse and get into a quick little life play here. Cool, so we just unlocked this signature building, and I'm wondering if we should put that in here or if we should save it for somewhere else. Let me just see how big it is, because I am curious if that would look good in this spot. So it's a little bit, it takes up kind of too big of a footprint, I think, for kind of what we're going for here. I could throw it like right here, but I don't think these people would really want to live right next to the train tracks. I might save it. I might save it for another city or for another area. I do want to go through later, and you could see, you may have seen that I put down this hotel here. This is actually a signature building. I was thinking about kind of going back through our whole build, you know, at some point, and just kind of putting down some random signature buildings. We got a lot in that leisure pack, one of the content creator packs or whatever that came out pretty recently. It has a bunch of like, you know, cool little restaurants and things that just look really good and, you know, add something different to your city. And they also have, you know, like practical benefits as well. You know, it actually improves attractiveness, or you know, this one, for example, improves entertainment for parks and just general well-being in addition to city attractiveness. So that's pretty hefty for such a small building. Actually, that's a nice 5% boost. Pretty good. But anyway, you can see things are coming along not too badly. We've got a mixture of styles going on here, and honestly, I'm liking the size of these buildings. This is exactly the kind of downtown look that I was going for. Nothing too big. Kind of reminds me of like a sort of like a small Midwestern city, almost something that you kind of drive through, you know, or just nothing crazy, but you know, no gigantic skyline or anything. Sort of like a downscaled version of Indianapolis, or maybe like something like Peoria, Illinois, or something like that. Maybe like Milwaukee. I don't know. Milwaukee's actually pretty big, so take that back. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and get back to work here. I've been fighting demand this whole time, and it's weird. Like I'll zone out, you know, a couple homes, and then demand will just go away, and then I'll zone out a couple more, and then it'll go away again. So just kind of, you know, coming back and forth between certain areas and just zoning out things as we get demand for them. And so far, it's, you know, working out pretty well, and we'll come back in at a later time and do some like real detail work. But right now I'm just focused on just getting buildings down. Then we'll fill in the gaps a little bit later. So I'm just going to go ahead and get back to work, and I will talk to you guys in a minute. And I just realized that I actually forgot to put down fire and police coverage here. So we're going to do that. Very important. All right. So again, just kind of explaining why I'm putting down some of these buildings here. We're going to use this city fire station right in the downtown. I like the way that this building looks. It's a lot more urban, you know, something that you might find in like a New York downtown kind of area. And so I like the way that it kind of fits in well with these mixed use buildings, these small, medium size, you know, medium density buildings and such. And then same with this police station is actually the German police station. I think it is just a really cool looking building. It's got a cool, you know, older style architecture, you know, something that's clearly historical, has been around for a long time. And I think that it, again, just adds a cool touch of history to this downtown area. And we're kind of mixing the whole theme of this downtown is kind of mixing like the old with some of the new. And, you know, using the new, like you could see, I have a block of the urban promenades buildings, you know, up there to the kind of to the right next to the police station. And then we have some medium density vanilla. We have some medium density European buildings. I even add in a couple of UK apartments here. And then we have some of the higher density or mixed use Southwest buildings that are a little bit more modern. So we're kind of combining the old and the new here. And I think it looks really cool to add that kind of diversity to your city's architecture. it is kind of showing that the city, it's kind of transitioning from, some of the old historical buildings to some more modern buildings, and it plays in well kind of with the whole, realism and diversity in your city. So I like it a lot. But yeah, I was struggling a little bit to figure out what to put in these areas here. I didn't want to put in, like, make these entirely into a park, but we're definitely going to add some park space over there in the future, kind of by that elementary school. But that's all to come. That's all to come in a, kind of a dedicated detailing episode a little bit later on. So we'll come back kind of and revisit these areas. And this spot right here, for example, like, I'm really struggling to figure out what to put there. I could be, do what I did in the other city and just put down like a bus terminal, but I don't know. We'll see if I end up doing that or not. But yeah, just filling out some of these zones. We're kind of fighting demand here a little bit, and just preemptively zoning, leaving space to come back in and fill things out. Again, I love to zone kind of every other lot, because then you get really even lot sizes and it just looks so much better, in my opinion. It looks way more planned out, especially when you can do it if you have like a grid. It works really, really well. These areas aren't as gridded, so I don't know, it may not look the best, but again, this is kind of a lower density suburb anyway, so not too worried about that. All right, so over here we're gonna do a little bit of a kind of a medium density / low rent housing complex. And I like these types of builds because they're very purposeful. So you can see this is right next to the industry, which is not the most desirable, but we're gonna have, luckily, that train line cuts through here. So we could have a nice separation between this residential and industrial areas. And then we can, add in a nice tree line, like right next to the train station, which we'll do, again, probably when we come back and detail up this whole area. But that's gonna be a really nice separator between these two areas. And so with these builds, I always like to add in a couple of parks, like a playground, basketball court, something like that, because obviously there's going to be some families living here. It'll be really nice and walkable, and all of any kids that live here can just walk right to the park without having to leave like too far from home. People don't have to drive everywhere. And we'll obviously add public transit in that area as well, since some of those, since it is a little bit lower rent of a like a lower income area, I don't want to assume that everybody's going to have access to a car. So being able to give public transit access will ensure that those people can get to work and school and everything like that. And finally, just over here, I figured I'd put down like a little bit of a kind of office commercial area over here and just clean this area up a bit. I'm still thinking about what to do with this area. This is kind of a weird space that I just kind of threw together, so we'll come back to this a little bit later. But yeah, with that being said, I think it is time to kind of wrap up this time lapse. We will go ahead and jump into another live play. So I will talk to you guys in just a second. And all right, we're getting there. I'm getting a little having some trouble filling in, thinking about what I'm going to put in some of these gaps. I guess I don't really need to worry about that right now, but I assume we're going to, beautify this up a little bit along this road here and kind of make, maybe like make a little trail or something, and then some parks. But like this spot right here, like I don't really want to put, homes here. I'd like to put actually something, functional, like a type of park or something, but I couldn't really find one that just fit too well. So we'll come back to that a little bit later. But yeah, our demand, again, it's so weird. Like our demand just keeps kind of bouncing up and down. And you can see like I zoned these homes and they didn't spawn, and now they're spawned. So now I can just kind of go in here and do something like this, which I guess is, it's fine by me, but it's kind of funny that they weren't really zoning in at first, and now they are. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm not disappointed so far. Like I said, like it's kind of the scale that I want. You come through here and you just see this little city kind of peeking up right there. Oh my goodness. What is happening? What is going on? Oh, I see the problem. This is the only way in here. That'll do it. That'll do it. I should really make another highway connection. That's what I really should do. But I'll do that another time. Let's get back to zoning out some more buildings, maybe. Creating more traffic jams. All right, and so a little time has passed. I've just zoned out a few of these little suburbs here and added in a couple of, leisure areas, a couple little parks. But admittedly, as I was recording everything that you saw before this, it was getting a little late, and I was getting a little tired and a little bit lazy, and so I, originally said that I wasn't going to mess with any kind of interchange. But I mean, just look at this traffic. I think it's it's a new day since the beginning of the episode, and so I finally have some motivation to build something, and I think that's what we're gonna do. This is unacceptable, and we do need access to this city if we're gonna be building, a pretty sizable city, all in one episode. So we're gonna build 2 interchanges. We're gonna build one here, and these are both just gonna be like regular T-style highway interchanges. So we're gonna build one over here, and we're gonna build one. I think I'm gonna kind of turn this to the left so that we don't have to buy this entire tile just to build like one ramp here. So I think if we turn this a little bit this way and kind of have it come underneath here, we could do something kind of nifty and like loop back around into here and connect up like over here, so we don't have to, again, purchase this whole tile. And I want to leave, actually I want to connect it up a little bit more to the left here as well, because then we can upgrade this this highway, to be like a 3-lane highway. There's this randomly upgraded 3-lane highway here already, so weird stuff happening. But yeah, the thing that's going to be challenging about these areas is going to be the terrain. So I'm debating whether or not we should make something elevated and kind of hollow out the terrain under here. But I think that would be, from a developer's point, that would be, this is a lot of land to move. I mean, just look at this height difference here. If we were to dig out all of this, I almost would rather just do something with the existing terrain. So this might actually involve tunneling underneath this, which is something kind of cool. I never really use tunnels in this game like at all, so it'll be something different. And so we'll maybe tunnel up, tunnel underneath this to get some on and off ramps connected to this highway. So just let me jump into another little time lapse. I'm gonna be kind of experimenting with this a little bit, so just bear with me here, be patient with me. I don't often build interchanges. I'm not like a highway engineer or anything, so especially when we're working with terrain like this, it might be a little bit more difficult. But we're just gonna take a stab at it, kind of see what happens. So yeah, bear with me here. Oh man, that took a long time. That took a long time. I ended up rebuilding this one because I didn't really like the way it looked. It looked a little bit too big for the area. When I zoomed out, I was like, man, it was just all like out here and just looked really bad. Actually, with that being said, I'm gonna bump these power lines a bit closer too, because I moved them out that way because of how far away that interchange was. That's a little bit better. Not the most attractive looking thing, but we're gonna detail all of this up at some point and make it look a little bit more integrated with the landscape. So I'm not too worried about that right now. I'm just trying, like the theme of this episode is just getting stuff where it needs to be. That's all. And this one I kind of like. It's got this cool little nice even curve here, and yeah, this one kind of loops under here. These are not, I had to get really creative with these designs, and I know they're not like the best, most typical interchange designs, but you know, I achieved my goal. I didn't have to buy this tile. I wasn't able to get the one other lane here, but that's fine since it's an off ramp. You know, people can just come off that way, which is it is what it is. I'm not too worried about that. And yeah, these curves, you know, nothing's too crazy. Nothing's looking like. I guess my one issue is going to be this lane right here. This is going to be a bottleneck, and I'm really, really worried about this. But we're going to see how much traffic actually ends up using this. Since this is not the biggest city, I'm wondering if this is going to be that bad. But this kind of reminds me of like, there's one interchange in Chicago where I-8094 and I-50... No. Is it I-55 like me? Anyway, there's one interchange where 2 lanes come in from the left and 1 lane comes in from the right. And then if you want to take like 8094, you have to stay in the right 2 lanes. And if you want to take 55, I believe, or 57, you have to stay in the, I think it's 57. You have to stay in the left lane. And so there's like a 3, you know, center 3 lanes where traffic is just crazy. Everybody's trying to get over, you know, and everything. But anyway, I'm going to press play. And the game didn't crash. It did crash while I was building this once, but I guess, you know, it's to be expected. I was adding in one of these like extensions, and it just didn't really like what I was doing. But yeah, already we're starting to see cars flow through here. I think this is going to be really, really busy, but also really good for this area. Too bad like these guys can't really take advantage of it right now, sadly. They seem to be a little bit already kind of know where they got to go. Sorry guys, but yeah, we can see some. I think some of this traffic hopefully will start moving, going straight. Yeah, these cars look like they're starting to take an alternative route. Hopefully, yeah, look at that. Traffic's getting moving here. Not everybody's got to get off on this right lane. Yeah, even over here, look at all these cars already jumping off the ramp here, coming into the city. Oh, this is perfect. This is beautiful. I love this. I love it when things just work. It took a while to build this, but yeah, and I had to think about too, I almost forgot that I wanted to put my train line through here. So I got to think about what I'm going to do with that. This might be a cool opportunity in the future to do like a tunnel underneath here, and then it'll pop out like right by these power lines and kind of, you know, continue this way. So again, that's something that we're going to deal with way later on if we even expand all the way out here. But yeah, so now that we got that out of the way, I forgot about row houses. I kind of forgot that they existed last night when I was recording this. So I was wondering what to put here, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to put like single family homes. I think we're gonna do a mixture of row houses and some medium density in this last little block here, because like I said, the goal for this city is kind of to be dense all around here. Since this is a small space, you know, we do want a fair amount of residents here. So we'll go ahead and we'll jump in, we'll do that. And then I think that'll be kind of the last thing that we do in terms of building out this part of the city. We'll come in and detail it. I'll see how much time I have left. I'll either detail it now, or actually, you know what? I'm going to make that decision now. We're going to come back and detail everything in like the next episode. We'll do like a detailing episode. We'll fill in like this gap here with a nice park, and maybe think about some transit options, and, you know, just some little details to really make this area look good. Because there is a lot of detailing work to be done. I want to put, you know, trees all along here. I want to put, you know, add in like parks and trails and everything like that. So anyway, let me finish up zoning out this little spot, and then we will wrap things up. All right, and I think that'll just about do it for now. We're waiting for a few zones to fill in here, like these medium density ones, these low density ones. We don't have a lot of demand for that right now, and our demand for workplaces is very, very high. Actually, how high is it? 33. Ooh, oh, that is bad. That is very bad. Didn't expect it to be that high, but we did just, I guess to be fair, we did just zone basically all residential and barely any commercial and no industrial whatsoever. So that is kind of to be expected. And we have a terrible lack of city services here, but I got done with what I wanted to do for this episode, which was fill in this whole area with at least the zoning. And so again, from a distance, like you could kind of, if we get rid of all the horrible indicators there, you can see that it actually doesn't look that bad. It looks like a relatively complete city, at least, you know, from a distance. Once we get into the details, though, it, you know, doesn't look as complete, but I'm okay with that. We're gonna fix that probably in the next episode, or one of the ones very, very shortly after that. I think given the unemployment rate, I might turn my focus to some workplaces first, and then we'll come back and kind of detail up this entire like area. So what I'm thinking, just I won't talk for too long, but just as a quick thought, what I'm thinking for the next, or the big like workforce development, like I said at the beginning, I'm thinking about doing a forestry industry somewhere over here, and then we'll have some rural like farmlands that kind of transition into that. And then over here, I'm thinking of, you know, a cargo train station so that we can get some goods over here, because we do have rail access. We just don't have any sort of cargo terminal for this whole industrial area, and this is pretty sizable. So I think it would make sense that we have something to connect this to, well, for one, the outside world, and we don't have anything over here in terms of a cargo station either. So that would be the first one really for the region, which would be super important. So I think that is going to be a focus for us. And then I'm even thinking about some kind of waste management facility over here. So we do have, like, I don't really want to put a landfill. We have another recycling center. We can even use the Japanese one, which is quite a bit smaller, and it doesn't really have any upgrades, but you know, it produces, it has the same production capability or processing capacity of the regular recycling center, and it seems to be a little bit smaller. So I think we could fit it in somewhere over here, you know, in addition to the cargo train station. And that would be something really, really good to have for this part of the city too, because we're getting strained on garbage trucks over here as well. If you look at the recycling center real quick, you could just see like all of them are out, and one of them is in, oh, well, that's just the upgrade, but yeah, they're pretty much all out collecting. And yeah, we can definitely use some more garbage trucks. We can use some more hearses. We can use some more ambulances. We can just use a ton more city services. But you know what? All in due time, we got to chip away. We can't build everything right at, you know, all at once. So we got to chip away and kind of work on things individually. But yeah, so with that being said, I am going to go ahead and call it here for an episode. Pretty happy with how things turned out for now. Obviously, I'll, you know, get back and detail this in a later episode, like I said. So just be patient with me, bear with me here. I promise it's going to look better than it does right now. We also got to set up our transit networks and, you know, like I said, some additional city services. So lots to do, but we just got to be patient. Just trust me. We're going to build something cool here, and I'm excited for this. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this build, and stay tuned for future videos. I will see you guys next week. Hope you guys all have a great week. And yeah, peace out.